Welcome to the Principal Podcast, where we talk about how the best professional services firms grow. Whether you're looking to scale your firm or learn from the stories of founders and leaders who've done it, you're in the right place. Join us as we interview the best leaders in professional services. Let's get on with the show.
Good afternoon, everybody. Today we have the privilege of talking to Lucas Liu, who is the managing director at RiseCore, the corporation that really works on company transformation and, more importantly, the ability to specialize in merger and acquisition and make it as seamless a transition as possible. He's going to share his story about his company and his background, and we're lucky to have Lucas on today. So Lucas, one of the things I always like to find out at the beginning is what was the journey you took to get to the position you're at right now, and why did you choose to start RiseCore?
Right. So RiseCore is a small consulting firm, and so just to back up a little bit, so I'm not the founder of RiseCore. I'm the managing director. I joined RiseCore about 16 months ago now.
Okay.
My path to RiseCore was a little bit interesting. I was at AIG for a number of years, and actually prior to that, I was with the Big Four, KPMG and Grant Thornton, and after AIG, I did independent consulting for about 7 years. And, over time, I've always had interest in consulting, and that's why I went into KPMG and Grant Thornton. And I find the work interesting because you're not doing the same thing every day or every month, right? It's a different engagement, a different issue you're trying to resolve. You're trying to help somebody solve their problem. And so when I wanted to get out of independent consulting, an opportunity came with RiseCore to join as a managing director and help lead the firm. So I'm actually doing more on the administrative and leadership side of RiseCore than I am on the actual delivery now. Although I have to say I do miss doing the delivery work, so I'm probably going to try to start doing a little bit more of that. But it was just I wanted to keep doing consulting, but I didn't want to be a one-person firm where I would partner with people here and there to get work done. And so now I have RiseCore as the managing director, and there's 12, 13 of us at this point.
I was going to say you must have a team around you, which is what you liked having and coordinating all that. So what problems do you guys feel that you look at companies and solve, and why is that important to you, Lucas?
Well, our clients are generally mid-size and smaller privately held companies, either private equity or just independent privately held companies. And when we come in, when we're brought in to help solve a challenge, a problem, help with an opportunity, they're looking to us for our expertise, our background, our skill sets, our ability to work with people on their team and help them through whatever that issue is, whether it's a M&A integration, a carve-out, process optimization, data analytics, pricing strategy, and then of course AI, right? Everyone's trying to figure out AI and how that fits into their strategy. So when we come in and we're brought in, we're looking to see how can we help them solve their problem, or how can we help them achieve whatever that challenge is that they're facing right now.
Okay. Well, when you consider that, you look at your, ideal customer profile, your ICP, who would you call that? Is it the small to mid-size you mentioned, or private equity? Or is there any other target, like, for example, a company that has X number of revenue or X number of employees? Tell me what your ICP, your perfect client, would be.
Our ICP in general is a mid-size and smaller company. However,
Okay.
if you ask 10 people what's a mid-market company, how big is a mid-market company, you're going to get 10 different answers.
Correct.
So what I like to say is, our clients, our potential clients, are people who we can help, where we have the skill set, the capability to come in and help them solve their problem. As an independent consultant prior to RiseCore, I had private equity portfolio companies, small and medium size, and I also had Fortune 500 clients as well. working on M&A integrations, and actually an IPO for another one, that was carving out a business unit. So, it the ICP is generally private equity or privately owned company, mid-size or smaller. That's generally our sweet spot. But again, if we have the capabilities to help somebody, help a business solve their problem, we're not going to say no, we're not interested, right? We're always interested in helping.
Okay, wonderful. Now, do you target geographically, or are there no boundaries domestically, internationally? Tell me about where you target those clients.
Right. And so our clients are generally, I'll say generally, US based. They may be 100% US domestic, a domestic operation, or they may be international. But our clients that we pursue are usually here in the US, and then there may be an international aspect to the engagement. And so we do have a bit of international experience, uh, working in different countries, working with French work councils. If you ever had to go through those, it's a little it's a little tricky, a little challenge, but you work through it, you understand it, you figure out how to work through it, make sure everybody's feeling included, make sure everybody's getting the information they need. And it generally, will go pretty smooth as long as you're talking to everybody and
Right.
communicating. No, you can't make everybody happy, but if you can make everyone feel like they're being at least heard
Mhm.
and you're communicating with them, that's what you really shoot for.
I've experienced from my company's point of view dealing with companies that are going through a merger and acquisition in the financial world and watch the dynamics of how the company who acquires so many people end up departing from the other company that were there because they don't want to be involved in the transition, the changeover. And then when you integrate software systems that are trying to be compatible and they don't combine effectively, and then they can't do their job efficiently with their customer, they go, I know what, I'm out of here. I don't want to be involved in this anymore. And so there's a lot of turnover I see when a company gets acquired and the company who does the acquisition kind of doesn't really find it how to stop that situation. How do you guys deal with that when you have a acquisition of a company and employees of the company that was acquired say, I'm out of here?
Right. Well, hopefully we get to those employees before that happens, right? I mean, you know, through many, different types of integrations, right? It's inevitable. There is most likely going to be some sort of headcount reduction. Okay, fine.
Right.
Set that part aside. But it's the people you don't want to lose, right?
Right.
And what I notice is that, they focus on who's getting, the senior folks, the ones that are getting their attention package, right? But what you really have to pay attention to are the ones that are 2, 3, 4 levels down, who are the ones that are, the key person. You have key person risk. That key person risk isn't just a senior person. It's the person, to your point, who knows how that system runs, who knows where all the skeletons are, who is the sort of informal influencer in the company, right? They may not be the ones that you think, you need to give a retention package to, but they're the ones that if they leave, it's going to be a little disruptive. So we try to go in and identify who those folks are. I mean, everybody knows, right? The CFO, the C-level folks,
Right.
maybe the
Right.
VP
C-suite
market.
people. Right.
Go down 2, 3, 5 levels, depending on how big the company is, and find those people who are the influencers, who are the ones that, are doing good work, and make sure you don't lose them, right? Make sure you're making sure, they know where their role is in the future business,
I think that's
right?
critical. I'm glad to hear you guys doing that and identifying it early versus when the horse is already out of the barn. At that point, it's tough to bring them back. So when you think about when you talk about your influencers and you have decision makers, who do you guys target in the companies that you pursue in terms of the initial contact to try and do work with a client?
Right. Yeah, that's the hardest part, right? The hunting, getting the new
Mhm.
clients, right? Now, of course, when we have clients and we do our white glove service to make sure we're retaining them and we're keeping them happy and we keep doing good work. But when we're looking at new, out prospecting and looking for new clients, and we're looking at who are the decision makers, And so, for example, with private equity, um, who are the operating partners? Who are the C-level folks at the portfolio companies? Who are the advisors and the board members? Things like that. Who are the other significant vendors that they rely on? Whether it's their accounting firm or some other advisor that they use. Building relationships with all those stakeholders, and you know, giving that. It's what they say. You have one chance to make that first good impression.
Compression.
Right, and making sure you make that good first impression with that stakeholder so that they, have that continuing conversation with you, and that's sort of who we target first,
That's smart.
to make sure that, they know who we are, and if you can build that level of trust, right, that's the key part.
The interesting part is that people don't understand decision influencers are as important, if not more so, than decision makers. And I'm glad to hear that you guys really take the time to analyze that within a company and not just go to that C-suite level, but look, understand all this can be impacted by the people who actually are functional day to day, who don't always get the attention, but are the critical cogs in the machine. So when you look at how you get your customers, get a new client, let's talk about your marketing plan. Do you do things through LinkedIn? Do you do things through conferences? Or is it mostly referral from satisfied clients who will share, we want to work with Rise Corp because they do a great job? Or is there anything else that you're doing marketing wise to generate interest for clients to work with you?
Right, right. So, with private equity, it's very much high touch, right? They're not going to respond to, a general email blast,
Correct.
right? Um, and so we look at, events, in-person events that are in the industry, different industries, uh, events where we have operating partners or portfolio companies coming together so that they can meet us face to face. They get to know us. We have conversations. They can talk to us. Because how many people are going to criticize for bringing in one of the major consulting firms, right? That's sort of the safe
Not
bet.
many.
Right? You're going to pay a
Yeah.
lot more, but that's the safe bet. People don't know RiseCore unless you've been a client of RiseCore. And we will, if someone leaves a portfolio company and goes somewhere else, or the operating partner goes somewhere else, we stay with them. We'll follow them because
Smart.
they know our work, and will have hopefully had a good experience with our work and recommend us. Will bring us in. So we go out to events. I always encourage people face-to-face meetings. That nothing beats a face-to-face meeting,
No, it
right?
doesn't. Not in
Uh,
any business in the world today. I still believe, and that's where people have to realize AI is not going to replace them if they know how to develop those interpersonal relationships. If they don't,
Absolutely.
then they become a commodity, and at that point, then you're in trouble. Then you limit
Right.
the client looks at price or they look at technology, and they lose that human relation factor. So I'm glad to hear you guys like in-person events. But the challenge with that is you can't be everywhere at one time. And so that limits your ability to get your face in front of everybody by just targeting certain events. But obviously referrals are big and you use those because you have satisfied clients, which leads me to a question about within the clients, your stakeholders that you work with. And we've talked about what level they are at the C-suite, or you smartly look at operational levels. Let me understand, when you initiate a contact with a client and they, whether it be through a conference or through a referral, and you have their first engagement, from that period to when you finally have a point where they agree to work with you, what's that normal time frame?
Oh, wow. I never look at developing that first relationship, that first point of contact. If you're lucky, maybe you just, timing, right? They just happen to
Right.
have something, met you, and they're comfortable with you, and you've had the opportunity to get one or two other meetings with them, and then they have something right there. They've got something in the pipeline, and they decide, hey, why don't we give RiseCore a try?
Right.
Other times it's, I've been building relationships with folks for months, right? You meet them at an event, you
Mhm.
follow up, maybe you find something interesting in the news and you share it with them, related to a portfolio company of theirs or the industry they're in. And then when they actually have something that fits our services, then hopefully they'll reach out to us, right? And as you know, right, uh, it could be months before they have an
Hmm.
opportunity that fits what
Okay.
fits score. Right.
Now, when they initiate working with you, do you have contract periods? Is it like a 3 month, 6 month, a statement of work of some sort that you do?
Right. We'll always have a contract, always have a statement of work. Whether they need our support for a month, 6 months. We've had contracts statements of work be extended multiple times that we've been
Okay.
at one client for almost 2 years because we did an acquisition with them, or they did an acquisition. We helped them through it. And then during that same time period, they did another one. So we helped them with that. And then they did a third. So we were there for
Oh,
almost 2 years, right? And
wow.
so we're there to serve and help our clients. And that's what it comes down to. Whether they need us for 2 weeks or whether they need us for 2 years, we're going to be there.
Excellent. So your retention strategy to maintain your clients, obviously it's got to be some form of proactive engagement. Do you have metrics that you measure, or what is the reason a client will come back to you?
I think primarily, right, they'll come back. First and foremost, you had to have done a good job, right? They're not going to come back to you if they weren't happy. So,
Right.
um, our first and foremost, it's making sure we deliver, and we deliver in a very good manner, that the client's happy, the objectives were achieved, and it's one of those things where I say, hey, would you recommend us to somebody else, kind of thing, right? And then after the engagement is done, there's always regular follow up and contact to see how they're doing, see what's going on, and remind them of what other services RiseCore offers. If we did a M&A integration with them, well, we want to remind them, well, we also do process optimization, we do pricing strategy, we do data analytics, and by the way, there's this new thing called AI, and everybody's do a little bit of that as well, right?
So when you look at the future, the balance of 26, but more importantly, 27 through up to 2030, where do you see the biggest challenge in the growth of your business?
I think personally, I find AI to be a challenge just because everyone we're all trying to figure it out. And the more and more we figure it out, and the more you read about it in the news, you're finding out AI is not everything it's being worked out to be. It's costing much more than everyone thought. And oh, by the way, some folks are, what it should be, AI should be supplemental. It shouldn't be replacing. Um,
Correct.
People are finding opportunity. They're actually hiring additional people because of AI and the opportunities AI presents. But we're going to go through a period where um, we're going to find good uses and not so good uses of AI in business, and where those unacceptable expenses are coming from right now, right? So we hear about excessive token costs, right? For coming because people are now using AI just like they were using Google to just do what time does the store close, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
What's sunrise today and sunrise? Yeah. When is the sun for?
Right, right.
Yeah. Sunset.
And that costs money, right? Cost 25 cents to ask that. Whereas, right, you're in Google, you just type it, it doesn't cost anything.
Right.
So I think all of those, um, what I'll call the non-sexy parts of AI, are going to come to bear, and we're going to have to work through those parts of it, right? Everyone likes the being the front-facing business part of it. People are now going to have to start focusing on what's happening in the background, behind the curtain, in the closet, that isn't as interesting, isn't as exciting, and doesn't make your resume pop like putting AI engineer on a resume, right?
Correct. You know what I
So I
think is
think AI
fascinating is I think you've nailed it. I mean, a lot of people I interview, they're uncertain about AI, what will it mean, what will its asset, what's its detriment, and you're the first one who's really truly broken down some of the costs behind the scene that people don't look at, and I'm aware of in some aspects with clients I work with, but not as articulated as well as you did, there is going to be some challenge on the aftermath of what is the true profit impact of AI. Will it really generate what everyone thinks, or behind it are there hidden costs you didn't factor that all of a sudden are going to stare you in the face? So
Right.
as you look at the opportunities ahead for you and for RiseCore, where do you see the biggest opportunities for growth in the future?
Given that we're a small company, I think, every area is an opportunity for growth for us, right? There's, even within our current, what I'll call our core verticals, M&A integration, carve-outs, divestitures, exit readiness, right? That's always happening with the private equity firms, right? They're doing, they're in that business and they always need somebody with our services. What I think is part of our strategic advantage is that we bring what I'll call senior level folks
Okay.
who roll up their sleeves and actually do the work. We don't follow, and I'm ex Big Four, so I can say this. That Big Four model. You bring in an army of junior folks to do the work. They update the manager updates the senior manager updates the partner, and then the partner goes and meets with the client, right? That's not how we work. Our folks who are there meet with the client because our folks there know the details. They're down in the weeds. They're talking to the team, the client's teams. They're doing the work. They understand the spreadsheets. So they can talk down into the detail when it's necessary, but they can also come up and talk higher level to the bigger strategic issues, not just the execution part of it.
Yeah.
But the execution, at the end of the day, it's the execution that matters, right? You could have a great idea, but if you have poor execution, what do you have?
I always say theory is wonderful, but reality is actually doing the job. And so many people are theorists and they think, well, if you just do this, this, and this is going to work. Well, have you done it? Have you actually lived it? Have you really been there to the point where you can understand it so you can explain it and articulate it to your client? If you can't, don't give me the theory of what's going to work. Give me the reality of what will happen. And I'm glad to hear that you guys have got a team that really does get down there and looks at the reality of the situation. So, our 25 minutes are already blown by as quickly as that, Lucas. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. What other things would you like to share about opportunities in the future ahead for RiseCore and for yourself?
Well, I think with RiseCore, we're growing. We're trying to, we're growing as fast as we can manageably grow, right? It's not just about getting big fast. It's making sure we don't drop the quality of work, right? We don't sacrifice quality for growth. And so, our work, we've done, I don't know how many integrations now, right? We've using our playbooks to help guide the process on how we do integrations, just lessons learned from the many acquisition integrations that we've done and how those all apply to the next one we work on. RiseCore, we're finding ourselves, interestingly, coming into contact on proposals with some of the bigger consulting firms now.
So you're getting
Not that we're going a little bit up. They're coming down actually, which I think is interesting. And and truth be told, right, in the mid-market space, the rates are lower. It's not like, in the big, major private equity firms or the Fortune 500s who will pay those big rates. So it's interesting that a lot of these firms, the bigger ones, are coming down market, and we're starting to see them. So that tells me they're probably going to have margin issues in the future if they want to. If we keep seeing them, that means they're going to have margin issues because I know we provide just as good of a job as any of them, but we do it at a much more reasonable rate.
Right, because you don't have the same overhead. Like you're saying, you're right. They're going to impress our margins. So it's good to know that you have yourself, and I imagine some of the peers who work with you and your team of 12, they probably have that Big Four background as well. So the familiarity with your industry allows you the ability to know what you can price at, but more importantly, the service you offer will give you potentially a better value than it would get from the bigger company, but they're coming into your waters now to swim. That is interesting.
Right.
So,
Yeah, but the key thing is, right, again, we're small, so we can't be everything to everybody, and I can't turn around and I don't have 5,000 people sitting in offices across the country that I can pick from when I need somebody. But what we use is our pool of subject matter experts who are all very senior folks who have 15, 20 plus years in a specific space. And if we need somebody with that particular experience, because either our folks are busy and they're not available, or maybe it's a skill set that our core team doesn't have, we can reach into our pool of experts, bring them in on an engagement. And then when the engagement's done, the expense is gone as well. So we don't have to carry that like a full-time employee like the bigger firms do. So that's another one.
You have a set of independent contractors that are subject matter experts, and you can bring them in as needed. That is an advantage because that you're right. You don't have the overhead or the benefits costs or all the other things. And then once that job's done, they're done. And that makes sense.
Right.
It keeps you more competitive. So when you look at everything that you shared, I would say there's a lot of reasons why people should be more interested in RiseCore based on our conversation today. You've shared some of the critical factors that make you stand out versus the larger players in your space. But more importantly, I think the expertise that you bring to the table based on your background coming from that industry and that wealth of knowledge you learned, and now you're applying it in this particular field at RiseCore. So what's the best way for people to reach out to you, Lucas, and get more information about you and your company?
Well, people can go to our website, risecore.com, our LinkedIn page, or email me, lucas.liu@risecore.com. I'm always looking at emails, maybe too much, but if you're reaching out, you'll get a response directly from me. Then we can schedule a time to talk.
Wonderful. Lucas, I appreciate your time this afternoon. I think the listening audience has gained a lot of knowledge about who you are and what you do. And I really appreciate you spending the time with us today on the Principal Podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Principal Podcast. We hope you've learned valuable lessons and strategies to grow your firm and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.